Thank you again for being here and for your patience this evening, and we want to turn the time over to Courtney. Thank you.
Hi everybody. I feel like I should do a cabaret number or something. Hello. Hi, I'm so happy you're here. I'm happy to be here. I haven't been to CC, as we call it in the business, for a while, but this is my third time speaking, and hopefully it will be the best. We'll just see. I'll let you decide. Really, I feel like I'm a stand-up comedian. Okay, I don't have any jokes. Ladies and gentlemen, I brought a very Provo-centric presentation for you tonight, and I'm wondering how many of you live here in Provo. Okay, all right, yes. Okay, so perhaps we could say maybe the majority. How about Utah County? All right, okay, all right, we're all friends here. So I think for the most part, you could take whatever we're doing in Provo and apply it to your own community. By way of introduction, I grew up here in Provo in the Tree Streets across the street from BYU. Couldn't wait to get out, and didn't get out, because here I am. But what I decided at some point was that, look, I'm still here in Provo, and I'm having babies, and we bought a house, and I'm here. So what am I going to do? And I just decided that I was going to be a community advocate. So at the time, I had a blog, cjaneKendrick.com. It was called C. Jane Enjoy It. And I decided that I would take that blog that was doing pretty successfully and segue that into a community advocate role. And I started another blog called C. Jane's Guide to Provo. And that blog grew and grew at a pretty great, steady pace. And it got to the point where I was starting to be asked to be on boards and community groups. And I started to think, wow, we're thirsty for community advocates in Provo. This was 2010 maybe. And then I was asked to be on a board that was charged with bringing people to our devastated, dilapidated downtown. Do any of you remember when downtown Provo was a ghost town, right? So our job was to bring arts and bring people to experience arts and culture downtown. And we didn't have a lot to work with at that time, but we did have was a really great music scene. And so we decided that we would take the music scene and give it a bigger venue. And so with that, we started the Rooftop Concert Series, which started in 2009 with 500 people and grew and grew and grew until structurally we could not keep it on the rooftop any longer. So we moved it down to the streets to accommodate the crowds. And we're currently in our 7th year. Thank you. Okay. But that Rooftop Concert Series started a lifelong partnership, I hope, with Mayor John Curtis. And because we worked well together, we seemed to have the same vision. I went into his office one day and said, I think you should hire me in an advisory role, community outreach advisory role. And he was like, okay. So they created a job for me at the mayor's office. I'm there 2 days a week. I love it. It's the best job in the world. I can't even tell you what I do. And if Mayor Curtis were to come in, he couldn't really tell you what I do. But a lot of what I do is research our community. What does our community look like? What are our problems? What are our advantages? Where are we? Where are we going? Where is the growth going? And how do we take these messages and community problems that we need to have conveyed into our public? And how do we make it in a way that people can grasp what's going on in our community? And one of my favorite things about my job is I get to work with really great people, and Brett Borgett running the camera down there is one of those people in our creative team, and it is just, it's brilliant. And I think the vibe that maybe you feel in Provo is the vibe that we get to feel every day we go to work. So that's really awesome. So that brings me here today, right here, standing in front of this microphone. I consider myself first and foremost a writer and a creator, because I started my whole career in blogging. And so you are my people. Creative people are my people. And what I hope to do today is to show you how creative people change our world, but specifically how they're changing Provo. And I hope that makes sense. So I'm titling this lecture called Creative Disruption, Changing Provo Through Artistic Expression. So that's me in that big Yeti coat that you're looking at right there. I don't know if you see it. But I put that up there just because I'm a narcissist, and also because I thought it represents this moment where I was standing up on the rooftop stage and I was about to bring on neon trees. It was our biggest crowd by a lot. It was about 10,000 people. And I was like, no way. It was one of those like, I can't believe this just happened. But it wasn't really so much about me. It was about the art community, the music community, the art community coming together to change and to change Provo, which was really, really beautiful to me. So my purpose is to inspire the creative people of our city to use their artistic skills, unique talents, and intriguing methods to change Provo in a way that is progressive, provocative, and peaceful. So here's what I mean by disruption. Disruption is a buzzword. It's the idea of taking something ordinary, an idea, a process, a concept, or a culture, and changing it so much that it can no longer function in its normal way. So when I think about disruption, I think about playing with my kids in a sandbox. I have 4 kids, by the way. I always forget to mention that. And a husband. I'll play with my kids in a sandbox, and then you get the hose, right? Or you get some sort of water source, and you're channeling the water through the sand. And disruption comes when you maybe change the way the water is flowing, right? I know this is all very elementary, but I want you to think about this, get like kind of a visual in your head about how a community continues to grow until there's disruption and continues to flow until there's disruption. That's kind of what I'm talking about. So why do we need disruption in Provo or in the greater Utah County or Utah, to be honest? And these are the things, this is my part of my speech. It gets a little wonky, but this is like what gets me up and gets me going in the morning, is studying these sorts of things. Our Provo population is a homogenous one. Consider these statistics from 2010 census. We're 84.8% white. I think that this room right here is a good example. We're young. Only 15% of our population is above the age of 44. So that means in about 6 years, I'm either like, gotta find somewhere else to live, or I become part of the 15% of Provo, which is crazy, right? Because we consider 44 years old middle age. Would you consider it middle age? Yes, okay. Our median, yeah. If you are plus 44 years old, please raise your hand. All right, Catherine. Okay. We're so grateful you're still here. Okay. Our median age in Provo is 23. Can you imagine? Like, that is so young. We are so young here. And we're 84% Mormon. If you were just to take the religious culture, if you were going to just take people who identify as religious, 98% would identify as LDS, which is no surprise. But things are going to change, ladies and gentlemen. We are sitting on the edge of dramatic growth in Utah County. The projections are like Utah itself is going to double its population by 2015. But Utah, most of the growth is going to come to Utah County in the next 20 years. We're set to explode, and that is called through the legs, between the leg explosion, which means that most of our growth is going to come from our own self. How do I say this delicately? It's us. Births. Okay. Oh, that's a good word. Okay. So we're going to continue to have babies around here, and it's projected that they will have babies too. So anyway, that's where our growth is mostly going to come from. This growth will not change only our volume, but also our demographics. So, while most of our now I'm all flustered. Okay. Well, most of our projected growth is going to come through our own families. We also are projecting that people are going to start being attracted to the tech and the startup industries that we have here in Provo. So the change isn't only volume through our own hereditary bloodlines, but also people are going to start moving into Utah more frequently. So people who have once enjoyed Provo for a small town feel will likely move to the peripheries, and you probably know people in your ward that are moving to Payson, or they're moving to Santaquin or Goshen or Nephi. Some of them are even moving more south. I mean, the 89% of you that are in the ward, I shouldn't just make assumptions here. Provo will likely become much more city central, more diverse. So as the population grows and our older population moves south, possibly, that's going to put Provo more central and possibly more multicultural. And we are already changing. Take this for an example. According to a 2006 study released by the Basin Area Center for Voting Research, Provo was the most conservative city in the United States with a population of 100,000. Provo, however, was not in the top 10 on Forbes magazine list of most conservative cities in 2015, nor did it make the top 10 rankings of conservative cities by political donations in 2015. So I just want to say, in 2006, I had my Provo blog. I remember when the study came out, and I was like, I think it's sort of interesting, because if I were going to take a poll in my neighborhood of who votes Republican, who votes Democrat, I would say that we would probably be closer to 50-50, which, I mean, I remember the comments just exploded, like, Courtney, you're crazy. Like, nobody in Provo votes left or even moderate most of the time. But I remember feeling very strongly that things were changing, and now we can see. I don't know if you were at the caucus in March. Was it March or April? But it felt very much like our political voices are changing, for sure. So our homogenous society, clearly to me, presents three major problems. And it presents lots of problems, let's be honest. And it also presents lots of positives, and I want to make sure that that's been said. But three that I'd really like to focus on tonight is safety discrepancies, shared values that can lead to shared problems, and less ideology advancement. And by the way, these are three very different people who live in Provo, my parents being the middle, who have lived here their whole lives. So number one, safety discrepancy, those who feel safe here versus those who don't. Now, I know it's not black and white, it's not binary, it's not like either you feel safe in Provo or you don't. But what I mean is that we have populations that feel like Provo is very easy to live in, and then populations that really struggle living in Provo, if that makes sense. And we use the word safe, meaning that they feel like they're safe to be who they are. When you come into Center Street, you might see, when you're coming into Center Street or down Center Street on like the close to 500, You see Pioneer Book and city limits together. This to me is kind of what we're talking about. So when we use the word pioneer, that's a word in our language that tips off our homogenous culture, right? Our demographics understand what pioneer means. I was talking to a friend recently who grew up in New York, and she said, I grew up in the town that my ancestors started and built, but I would never say my pioneer heritage started this town, right? But she said, because that's a Utah word. That's something that the Mormons in Utah use to say, I have lines that go back very deep in Provo, or Utah. So when we hear the word Pioneer Book, we think of our LDS Mormon population. And Pioneer Book isn't necessarily an LDS book seller, but just the word is kind of a beacon word, right? It's a buzzword in our language. And then it's right next to city limits, and you can see city limits is proudly flying the rainbow flag, which signals that they are LGBTQ friendly, and the equality flag, which means that they are for marriage equality. And we know that city limits does really great work with our trans population. So right there together, you have two different beacons coming out of our city. And when I talk about safety, I'm saying that there are populations who feel very comfortable going in city limits, and there are part of our population who do not, if that makes sense. And reversely, there are people who feel very confident about the pioneer culture, and then there are those who do not. And we all share the same geographical boundaries. This is from Twitter today, from a student at BYU, a black woman. She says, I love Provo so dearly and have experienced a surprising diversity of perspective and thought. And I've met so many people I admire here, but my biggest challenge in Provo is feeling alienated as a person of color. Lots of microaggressions every day. So there are those of us who never feel microaggressions in Provo, and then there's those of us who do. Number 2, shared values can lead to shared problems. Okay, I hope that you're gonna follow me on this one. Okay. Some of our biggest problems in Provo revolve around cars. Parking is a big problem. Towing is a big problem. Congestion is a big problem. Air quality is a big problem, right? These are issues that at the mayor's office that we are constantly working on. Now here's the problem. We all share in this community a love for families, right? And we love to have our babies. So we have these babies, and then we've got to get them from one place to another, so we have big cars. Now, like as we were pulling in, I just quickly looked, it was like minivan after minivan after minivan, right? So we're having these big cars. These big cars take up a lot of space. When there's a lot of us here with a lot of cars, a lot of big cars, and we have all these kids who need to go to karate over here, and then they need to go to piano lessons over here, and then they need to go to dance lessons. We're constantly shuttling these big cars around. And that has all sorts of implications on our city structure. 1 is congestion, 2 is pedestrian and bike safety, 3 is air quality. We have a problem with our air quality. Did you know? We have an air quality issue here in Provo, and this certainly reaches out to the wider area of Utah County and Salt Lake County. By the way, I bet you know somebody who has all those kids, right? It's a lot of decals here. Also, when we share similar values, sometimes we forget that those values sometimes are not shared by a segment of our population, and when it's not shared, there's cultural shaming or social shaming that comes into place. So let my friend Alex tell you what that means. I mostly feel weird when he's talking about being in Provo. I mostly feel weird when people check to see if I'm wearing my garments and then proceed to judge me, but I'm a white dude, so Provo is literally the safest place in the world for me to go. So it's sort of an interesting juxtaposition. 3, less ideology advancement. Historically, while homogenous societies retain their culture, they're less likely to adapt to the evolution of civilization. Without new ideology and adaptation, they become at risk, weakened, and ultimately abandoned. And in my mind, I think about downtown. What was it about downtown that once made it vibrant, and then it died, and now it's coming back? I mean, Catherine, do you remember this? No, this was 1970 this is Provo in 1970, and yeah.
Well, I've just heard a lot of stories about the big Woolworths, and that was the largest store around.
Yes.
I needed to shop there.
Downtown. When I was really young, I remember going downtown to shop for goods, and then it just stopped. We just didn't ever go down there. And malls, I think we've heard a lot about malls taking that, the University Mall taking a lot of that downtown culture away. But my hope is that what we're learning is that when something like a mall or strip malls or different business models come in and sort of threaten our downtown spaces or our spaces in general, that we'll have an ability to adapt to that. So why do we need disruption in Provo? As it stands, we have few beacons in our city that reassure people who don't fit the homogenous demographics that we are a safe place. And are we a safe place, is what we need to ask ourselves. Disruption can interrupt social and economical patterns, and new ideas will keep our neighborhoods and our city thriving. Catherine, I know you could speak so much to this, so. How can our artists solve these issues? Because art is a language that can be progressive and provocative and peaceful. It can transform communities and heal them. At no greater time in the history of Provo have we needed our creative community to lead the charge of social integration. Artist activation has a way of stimulating economy and ideology. So what I'm hoping that we get here is that our artist community can solve so many of the issues that we have here in Provo. And I mean that absolutely 100%. How does creative disruption help? It solves pressing problems that inflict our community, including air quality control, road safety, neighborhood preservation, discrimination, safety, community awareness, and boost to economic health. This is my moment. Just pretend that you can hear her say, Obi-Wan, help us, you're our only hope. But this is true, like you are artists, you are our only hope. You really, really are. And I'm gonna show you why you are our only hope at this point. Susan Krueger-Barber, we all love her, right? If you don't know who Susan Krueger-Barber is, make yourself a promise right now that you're gonna go home and Google her name and then read everything you can about her. She has made such a massive, massive difference in our community. And the thing is that I can only highlight a couple things that she has done, but rest assured, she is a social justice warrior. Right now, she's working on her master's degree at the Art Institute of Chicago. She's an out-of-box thinker. We are honored to have her in our community. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Just her vivaciousness and her spirit is just incredible. Susan and her neighborhood decided that they were going to start a community event called Complete the Streets, where they just took, I think it's 200 North, 200 West, 200 East, you're no help, husband, 200 East, and they just blocked it off. And they decided that what they were going to do is they were going to encourage their neighbors to think of other ways that we could use a street. So they had little mini parks going up on their street. This was just for one night. They had art installations going up on that street. They had people painting charros, bike charros. They had concerts going on. And so what they were trying to do is they were trying to think, instead of using all this space in this city just for us shuttling our big cars up and down, what else could this space be used for? And so you can see she does a lot of work with cones and balloons. And so that's what you see behind her. So road safety. So one of the things that she does a lot of work on is how do we help our pedestrians in Provo stay safe? We have a lot of pedestrians in Provo, have you noticed? Have you ever driven 700 north between like 9th East and University at like 9 in the morning or like 5? Yeah, like you are stopping every block. If you're nice. If you're not nice, you're just barreling through. I'm not gonna name any names, but after I watched this video that Susan Krueger-Barber produced and put together, I could no longer just barrel through an intersection when there was a pedestrian waiting. It just became like such a passionate issue for me. And every time I stop for a BYU student, I want to call their mom and say, oh, I'm just here on 100 North or whatever, and I just stopped for your child, and I just want you to know that they're safe here in Provo. So let's see if I can get this video to work. Just press it again. Okay. So the flag that she's carrying is literally the size of a car. So you can see that even though she has a flag the size of a car, it doesn't necessarily stop people from zooming past her. Here she comes again. And just look at that. So you can see that her awareness around pedestrian safety is very needed in Provo and very disruptive. We're used to having our right of way with our big cars and our kids in the back, right? But when we think about how many pedestrians use our roads every day, it's surprising we don't have more accidents. Another thing that Susan has an alias called Art Girl, and a lot of times Art Girls will, you'll see Art Girl has struck again around town, and one of the things that Susan's very passionate about is air quality. And last year she started a campaign called Shovel Your Walk. And the idea is that when we shovel our walks, it allows people to continue to walk around, because we noticed that in the winter months, people stop walking because the sidewalks are full of snow, right? So then we have more cars and more air quality problems. But if we all shovel our walks, then our walks stay clear, and then those who walk can continue to do so. So she wrote a song, and she painted these murals behind her, and she performed the song with a performance piece, Shovel for Your Grandpa. Did anybody see this? Like, my kids can literally do the whole song and the whole dance. She even did choreography. It was pretty incredible, and we put it up on the mayor's blog, and it went like wild, and like she was on Fox 13. I mean, people were all over this, but it was a disruptive way of talking about how we can help our air quality in Provo just by simply shoveling your walks. Okay, this discussion would not be complete without Leuven. How many of you are aware of who Leuven is? Okay, Tanya, okay, thanks. Okay, good. So back when I started my Provo blog, I'd say like this is 2010. I used to read a writer who wrote about Provo called Jim Dalrymple, and now he writes for BuzzFeed, but he had a blog called Provocation, which is a great name for a blog, by the way, in Provo. Anyway, he started to talk about the street artist called Leuven, we would wait for it, and like overnight, we'd like we would check Jim's blog, and it would be like, okay, there's a new Leuven on, 500 West or whatever, and we would just get in the car and we'd chase it. It was very Banksy, right? Just think Banksy. We had our own, and it was really, really exciting. And a lot of them were kind of community pieces. I remember one time we got up to the rooftop venue, and he had left one there, and it was like, oh my gosh, rooftop has a Leuven. So anyway, it was very exciting. And one day, Jim posted about this image that Leuven put all over downtown, which was the Provo bike image. How many of you have seen the Provo bike image? Okay, right. So I think as soon as we saw that, we were like, oh, wow, that is really, really great. That's creative, it's witty, it's clever. It's exactly what we want from Provo. So that turned into t-shirts, right? And those t-shirts turned into a massive mural that you can see right by Foxglove downtown. And then all of a sudden, our community, Provo, we love our cars and our big cars, was suddenly turning into a bike town, simply from Leuven making it cool to be a bike town. And all of a sudden, we're starting to talk about Charles, we're starting to talk about bike safety, we're talking about how to urban design for bikes. And then as this conversation starts, our bike collective starts getting more and more popular. People are starting to see our bike collective out and about. Then we start capitalizing on May, your Bike to Work Month. That becomes a big community event. I mean, can you feel this? It's like, oh, Provo, we love bikes, we love bikes. And then it goes to our legislative processes in the mayor's office and beyond, and suddenly we're talking about taking out a whole street, Bulldog Blvd, and making it completely complete, which means it's safe for pedestrians, it's safe for bikes, and safe for cars. But not as many cars can go through that corridor, which means less traffic, which is an interesting way that works. But anyway, I want to say that Leuven was the one that made us start to think about Provo being a bike city. And now these changes are totally disrupting Provo in big, big ways. Have you been following the microbrewery debate? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the debate of the century here. This is so exciting. So Richard Gregory of our Provo Town Square has some friends. Do we say our friends? Yes. And they are wanting to put a microbrewery in Provo. Now, as Richard describes it, it's micro, like it's this tiny microbrewery. And they also know that because of our homogenous society, they're not going to sell a lot of microbrews, so they're also planning on doing some sodas, which is like ginger ale, right, or root beer. And you can taste these sodas, these samples, if you come to our next rooftop concert series. They usually have a tent out, and they're giving out samples, which is really cool. And they are divine, I have to say. So how does Provo feel about having a microbrewery? Let's find out. So first of all, I want to straight up acknowledge that microbrewery is a craft and an art form. It's a craft and art form, Fulmer said. It's not just putting things in a pot and throwing yeast on top. A microbrew is a culmination of flavors in the brew and how it also mixes with food paired with it. So this is an art form. In order to be able to have the council start making it okay for Provo to have a microbrewery, we have to have at least 2 city council members interested in putting this on the council's work session. Thank you. So Dave Connect, one of our council people, put it out there that he wanted to know how our city feels about this. So the councilman shared 3 samplings of those who responded. He asked 2 questions. How do you feel about this type of manufacturing business coming to Provo? And will it supply jobs and be good for the economy, or will it erode our moral fabric? Okay, let's find out how we felt about it. I absolutely believe we should fight this type of business. We have strict alcohol laws in Provo for a reason, said another constituent in the next district. No matter how classy a brewery makes itself appear, the business still revolves around alcohol, which is something we do not want in our community. It might be fine in other communities, but Provo should always fight to maintain our moral standards as long as possible. If our support of businesses reflects our values, then shouldn't we be supporting only the best businesses with the best values? If Provo City supports this brewery, it is essentially giving a stamp of approval, which is not the message I believe Provo wants us to give. Okay, right? All right? Cheers. I couldn't help myself. Listen, I want to just say straight up that we feel that part of the success of Rooftop Concert Series is that we are a dry community, and it makes it easier to have a huge concert series because we're not constantly battling with people who are inebriated. Okay, so I get that there is an advantage to having these shared values. However, we are not all non-drinkers here in Provo. Right? And so to me, this signals discrimination against people who are not like our homogenous society. And it's almost offensive to me to say when he or she, I shouldn't say she, it's always the release side present in my head. But she says, shouldn't we be supporting only the best businesses, as if a microbrewery couldn't be a really great business and a really great art form, right? So I'm in support of microbrewery, but you don't have to be if you don't want to be. We can all love and support each other. But cheers either way. Okay. Geraldine Hasselpool is here with us tonight. She's in the back. Geraldine, I hope you don't mind me sharing your story. I was going to do it anyway, even if you said yes. So Geraldine and her family came to Provo from Oregon, and with the idea that Provo really isn't a safe place for a lot of people in our LGBTQ community. And we do have a place for community advocates. And Geraldine and her family packed up all their stuff and said, we're gonna do it, we're gonna go down there and help and support. And that's what we need. We need that in Utah in general. And especially in light of everything that's going on in our country, these are conversations that we need to have, and we need to have people who are not afraid to do big and bold disruptive things in order to help our most marginalized communities. So social safety. So when I think of city limits sitting next to Pioneer Book downtown, and I put them together, this is what I see. I see our rainbow flag with our Pioneer, Pioneer visuals, and I'm a Mormon, I'll Walk With You, which is a primary song that Mormon children sing. So this is the artwork of Geraldine Hasselpool, who's a designer, and she has done a lot of work to signify social safety, like in online, her Facebook discussions are always safe for our queer population. And she uses her design work to make it safe. And she's in Provo now. So we're hoping for big disruptions here, Geraldine. Okay, community awareness. We have a homeless problem here in Provo. It's not huge, it's not overwhelming, but we do have a homeless population, and we do need to come up with better solutions for our homeless population. And one of the things that Mayor Curtis decided that he was going to do was to put together a music CD, a Christmas music album, pulled together from our Provo music scene, and then the proceeds of which would go towards homelessness. Did I just make sense? Okay. All right. So in the second year, when I got hired, that was put right into my lap. They said, "Oh, you did Rooftop, so here you can also do the CD this year." So I decided, well, if we're going to do the CD, then we're going to take it one step further, and we're going to involve our artist community. So Steve Bissonette, who's here, did the artwork and the design work on it. Justin Hackworth took pictures for the promotions of the artists who are on it. Our music community donated their time. Our producers did most of the work. Everybody came together to put this CD together. And then Provo City raised the money for any of for the budget that we needed to have. And then United Way made sure that the money was secured and got to our homeless population. At this point, I hope that when we think about our community problems and raising money, that we will think out of the box like Mayor Curtis did here, that we will involve our artist community and our community outreach people so that we're all working together yes, take a picture. In a way that changes our population, whether homeless or we have so many issues that we can help people with here in Provo. Okay, boost economic health, and I think about downtown. Okay, so when we started Rooftop Concert Series, there wasn't a lot of things going on downtown, but one thing was going downtown, and that was Velour and Muse Music. And they really pushed this music scene and made it vibrant and viable. And that in turn inspired us at Rooftop, and many, many things have happened from there. And I think we are seeing the economic success of downtown because of art, because of our artist community and what happens in that space. Nate Murray said, from our economic development, in terms of economic cycles, art is usually a leading indicator of growth. Artists move to low rent areas, make it cool, then the investment comes. Think Soho, Haight-Ashbury, or locally Sugar House. In Provo, 5 to 7 years ago, the startup district and downtown were full of ambitious chefs, designers, and musicians. Now look at it. Does that make sense? See, you guys have to be on the forefront, and then everybody follows you. Our economic success depends on you. Last of all, this is my family at the at the food truck roundup. It was the first one. I'm always really proud that we were at the first one. So this is the first one ever, but the food truck roundup helped neighborhood preservation in a way that was interesting. So gourmet food trucks coming into a neighborhood gave it a boost, and now we see the startup district just going crazy. So you start to think, what are the neighborhoods in Provo that need the most help? Our Franklin neighborhoods or our walking neighborhoods, and what are we doing to stimulate those neighborhoods and preserving them? Last of all, community advocates. Where are you? There you are. So this here tonight, Creative Collaborative, is one of those things that's disruptive about Provo. Before, we had an artist community, certainly, and it was organized and it was moving. It created the Covey Center, it created spaces for our artists. But I think what we lacked was a network like this where we can all come together and talk to each other and work on issues in a wide space where everybody's involved. I remember when Brittany started to get involved and she was like, tell me what I need to do, where are the holes and I will fill them. And she has created this beautiful, beautiful thing that has made people in Provo feel like they can be an artist and they can be creative, and that they have a support group, and that they have a viable way of making their livelihood. And I am eternally grateful for what you've done here, Brittany, and I also feel incredibly grateful that I get to be here on your last night, for sure. So it's obvious that Brittany has put in a lot of time and a lot of effort into this. I mean, this has been a huge, huge, huge undertaking, and I hope we all can appreciate that. I also want to say that there are also such things as micro disruptions. So if you're not up for being a Brittany right now, there are little things that you can do, and I just want to share really quickly. At our last Bowie tribute concert, someone came dressed as David Bowie from Labyrinth. It was Jareth the Goblin King, the sexiest thing that ever walked the face of this earth, right? Sorry, Christopher. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. You're second. Anyway, just the fact that we got up on stage and we could see her in the crowd, and we stopped. Kevin Arnig from So Delicious stopped and recognized her. And in that moment, it was like, we are not all the same homogenous culture. We can have enough room for the people who want to dress up as Bowie. We can have enough room for people who do not fit our homogenous culture. I mean, to me, it was a performance piece that meant so much more than just going to a concert and dressing up. And then also on my other side, we have Abe Lincoln. The other day I was downtown, I saw Abe Lincoln cross the street, and I was like, whoa, what's Abe Lincoln doing in Provo? And then later I got on Facebook and realized that he was helping get signatures for the BRT. Now, despite my feelings about that, I do like the idea of the disruption that it caused me. It made me think about what's Abe Lincoln doing in Provo, and what if Abe Lincoln were here right now, and what would he say about our bus rapid transit quandaries? So I'm here to ask you, what do you want to disrupt in Provo? We still have so much room. We have room for our disabled population. We have room for our vets, our homeless population. I mean, we have so much work to do to get to a place where people feel comfortable and safe here. So I want to ask you, what do you want to do? Will it cost money? Do you need a sponsorship? Do you want to collaborate? Do you need to shut down roads? Do you need a marketing plan? Do you need safety measures? Do you want this to be ongoing, and how can I help? That is what I want you to walk away with, is how are you going to use your art, your craft, to change our community for the better? And that's it. Thank you, thank you. That's a Leuven, by the way, of Provo neighborhoods. Can I answer any questions? How can I help? Yes.
What's the best way to influence city council?
Whoa.
I mean, everyone's
Yes, that is a great question. Okay, first of all, we're small enough in Provo that you can call your city councilman and say, let's go to lunch, your city council person. I hate that I always say city councilman, but what is it?
I said, will they pay for lunch?
Will they pay? Okay, no, but it doesn't have to be fancy. Taco Bell. I really don't think that our city council people are foodies. If they are, I'm sorry, but I think mostly they'll sit down, or it doesn't even have to be lunch or food. But I do think we're small enough in Provo that those one-on-one interactions do help. So don't look past that. Also, I think I have seen our city council people be quite surprising at times. So don't give up on them. Yes.
With the demographics you have, I would be interested to see how many of those are actually registered voters and taxpayers to this county, because it sounds like a lot of focus is going towards people, but there's a power base of existing older people to whom this disruption is more disruptive.
Yes, yes.
And they're voting and they're paying large taxes on very expensive pieces of property that's been in their family for years.
Right.
They swing the cat around.
I mean, very astute comment. Absolutely, yes. And I would say that we don't do enough to make it safe for them too here in Provo, right?
The pictures you're showing me in moving the vision forward, that's not a vision that they're going to glom onto. That's like, well, what do you do for you? But
yes.
So what can be done if you want to move this along to help them feel like they're part of this?
Right. I mean, I think that's a fabulous question. That's why I put a picture of my parents in. It seems like my parents and I live a street away, and we don't agree on anything that's going on in Provo. Not anything. And I really don't know. I really don't know how to move Stephen City Clark to accept public transportation. So, fabulous question. No. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, always with changing people, it's finding out what vision they can accept. I mean, you got to find middle ground, and some of this might not feel very militant.
Right. A lot of times in the mayor's office we say, okay, maybe it's not affecting them, but it's affecting their grandchildren, right? There's always that idea that we are a family-based culture. So how a lot of, they might have children who are affected big time by these issues.
And maybe those conversations could be facilitated, where you could have them see how it's impacting the younger people in the community. That come together probably might need to be facilitated.
Yes.
Better.
Yes.
And also the fact that a large portion of the population is not, they're not native here, they're not here for long term, they're not invested in all these wonderful things you're doing for this community. They get the benefit, but then they're gone.
Right, sure, but our hope is that they'll say, oh, Provo's not so bad, I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna start a business here. I mean, that's, yeah, it's a big drop. Catherine,
I think sometimes people, this older generation, feels that everything's being rammed down their throat, and they don't have a clear understanding of what is happening or what it will mean to the future. And I think it's the conversation where you open the door and you gently kind of help them through it so that there's, by the end of the conversation, they have a better understanding, they can make a better choice, and then you can come together and hopefully move in a direction more, like you said, find that middle ground.
They don't have a problem with nature. They don't, it
Right.
does for them what they wanted to do.
they're part of the homogenous society, absolutely,
Right.
yes.
So when
Yeah.
you're identifying all these problems, they're looking around going, I have no problem.
Right, they feel safe.
Problems.
Yeah, they're part of the safe culture, for sure. Yes, so my question is, how do we approach it compassionately through our artistic capabilities?
They
Right?
have no problem, but they also enjoy the rooftop concert series, and 5 years ago, they may not have said, there's a problem with downtown, but now they're enjoying the benefit of it.
Sure.
So I think if we help them see the future vision, then that helps, and giving them a seat at the table. But in addition, in Provo, we hear a lot of talk about the transient community and people coming and going, and they're not going to be here for very long, but I lived in my house for 5 years, and of those 4 years, I did create a collaborative, and now we're moving on to something else, but hopefully this isn't something that's going to be forgotten.
For sure.
So it doesn't matter if you're here for 6 months or a year, you can still sink your roots deep and make an impact on the community that you're living in.
Absolutely.
And that's the idea that we need to change with students, with whoever. We need to all have this understanding that I don't care how long you're here, we love you and we accept you and we want the contribution you have to make because it's going to help grow Provo, whether you're here to appreciate it later or not.
Right, yes. I think that a lot of times we have a problem with BYU. It's sometimes sort of a closed campus. People don't get off of BYU very often, and quite honestly, we haven't given them good enough reasons to leave campus. So the more we have these beautiful, artistic events like this, our students leave. Are there any students tonight? Like, I hate talking about you. Okay, you're in the room right now. Thank you for being here.
That might have been misunderstood too, because I wasn't saying so much to the transient, but they're not your voters.
Yes, right. They're not our tax base.
So when you're asking for bond issues or other things to happen, and they're like, I love this, they got no say in that.
Right.
They're registered in Iowa.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
they're registered. So that's more what I was saying. Not that they're not benefiting or that they don't even love it or that they're going to learn from it, take it somewhere with them, and that's awesome. But they're not going to help you get the votes you need and push the city council because they're not even registered.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think education is the first step. I really appreciate what you're sharing because a lot of the people and the voters and the public may not be aware of the problems. They may not be aware of how they're driving and their traffic and the walking and the biking, like all of those things are
Totally.
And so I think, and like to your point, artistic expression is a soft way to communicate something, make the public aware of those issues. The education is the first step.
Absolutely. Which brings me back to Susan carrying that massive flag, right, across the road, right? When our drivers see that, I think they'll think twice. So yes.
I think that you're talking about like the older versus the younger generations here, the demographic that is so young. Look at this woman who's doing all of these great things. She is not young. And I think there is this whole population, even though it's a smaller demographic, of older people like me who I just think what you presented here is so exciting.
Oh, good.
And really, it's like, oh, I would love to get involved
So we need to have spaces where our different demographics
That
can
we're
converge.
pulling in
Yes,
older people
absolutely.
To get them on board.
Right.
And how it benefits them, because I think as a person getting older, public transportation is important to the older population.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be driving, and it gives them a way to get out and about. So
Yeah,
it benefits.
it definitely
Not
has-
just their kids.
Yes.
It benefits.
Absolutely. So I don't know if everyone can hear, but she's saying that things like public transportation that is sometimes scary for our older population, in the end will benefit them because they can use it, not just, their grandchildren, but they can use it as well. And we have to remember, again, although it is, yes, it's our tax base, it is our 15%, right? So that's a powerful 15% is what you're saying, yes. Yeah.
So I came from Davis County.
All right.
Right? And so imagine those statistics and add like 5. And also they're like 75% introverts. Where I live.
Introverts,
Yeah,
okay.
where I live specifically. So short of moving, what can I do to like make my community better? Like my specific community, like honestly that's why I came tonight. Because just recently I was talking to my husband a lot about this, and I actually Googled like innovative disruption, because I knew that that's what it would take, but I didn't know how to translate that business idea to like my community to actually make change happen.
Yeah. Well, you have your work cut out for you, sister. I can just say from my perspective, as a rooftop founder. Do you know what I mean by rooftop? Okay. So you take a massive community event that just keeps growing and growing and growing, and as it's growing, it's changing your population, right? So what I would do if I were me and I lived in Davis, I'm an introvert, by the way, so I should probably move up to Davis, but.
So you might not be an introvert up there.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So here's the deal. I would say, okay, what does Davis County have that's really, really great? Is it, I don't even know, I'm sorry, cheese? No. I don't know. What do you do really well up there in Davis? You have Lagoon. Okay. Well, certainly this is something I kind of wanted to bring up, and I know we're kind of running out of time, okay? So when we first started Rooftop, I noticed that we would have a concert, and there would be like 200, 400 posts on social media, right? Like it was the cool thing to do because nobody knew about it. It was like underground, and it was aesthetically cool, and then you contrast that with our last show, and we had maybe 15 posts about it. And I talked about this with some fellow artists, and I was like, what are we doing wrong? Because obviously we're growing, and yet that cool factor isn't growing. And I think what you have to realize is that when you start something really successful, it's going to have that underground, edgy feel where 5 people show up or 10 people show up or whatever, and they're posting about it and they're writing about it, and that's going to trickle on. So I think it's a model of success to take something that's maybe underground, something that maybe not a lot of people know about, and just start building on that and capitalizing on that. You're going to find it. You'll find it, and when you find it, you'll know what it is, and you'll be like, aha, this is it. And then it's going to take off. And then Davis County is going to be extrovert heaven.
Be mindful also as you move forward, blogging, we're all technological, but if we are going to reach some of that 15% that is enough to speak on that, you still have to do the newspaper.
Yes, traditional media.
You don't have local media here.
Yeah.
Salt Lake's not going to talk about Provo's traffic problems, does it?
Right.
That's nothing compared to what they have going on up there.
Yeah.
So, but that needs to be talked about in a way that's going to reach, the women and the men who may or may not reach out.
Yes.
To the venue. So if you want to do it, you got to meet them where they live.
Yeah.
Where they congregate, where they're having their donut in the morning, whatever it is they're doing, you have to be there.
Yes. For instance, my mom, last May when we were having our first rooftop of this season, she called me and she's like, honey, what are you doing tonight? And I was like, Mom, it's rooftop. And she was like, it was not in the city newsletter. And I was like, the city newsletter. I didn't even, So, right, that's what we needed to do. I feel like I didn't adequately answer your question, but we'll keep chatting. Okay. Any other questions before I put this one to rest? Okay, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, thank you.